For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Motsabi Hwayani. Polity speaks to renowned entrepreneur and founder of haircare brand Black Like Me, Herman Mashaba, to reflect on his autobiography, Black Like You. Your book documents the establishment of your haircare brand Black Like Me and the challenges you had to overcome from within the confines of the apartheid system. What do you think were the harshest conditions or laws countering your advancement, and how did you overcome these challenges?
I think, obviously coming or starting my business during the real dark days of this country's history, really some of the challenges that personally I experienced, and I think majority of blacks went through the past laws. I think, people can just really imagine what those laws really did to us as black people. Where our movements were totally curtailed in terms of where you can work, where you can trade. In the first place, you couldn't really trade as a black person. You're not allowed to really be in business. And you can imagine, I think when I took the decision late 82, when I bought a car and decided to be a trader, selling products for different companies on a commission basis. And most of the companies were here in Johannesburg that I represented. And obviously being a boy from Hammanskraal, Pretoria, you're not allowed to really come into Joburg because we had police all over the cities and our country looking for us as black people to carry your identity document to be allowed to be in this particular area. And I had no white employer to sign this. So, every morning when you leave home, there's that risk that I could really be locked up for past offenses. And the apartheid system, evil as it was, they lock you up for a past offense, put you with hardened criminals. I experienced this personally. Fortunately enough, I was never locked up for a past offense, but a lot of my peers were victims of this. And they come back, relate these horror stories. So, these were some of the challenges. But we fortunately managed to overcome them. I remember when I started Black Like Me in 85, living under one state of emergency, one to the other. And so all the townships always blocked off by the roadblocks and so forth. And one had to really navigate such systems. We had to operate from so-called Botswana because homelands, because as black South Africans, we're not allowed to run business in the so-called white South Africa. So, these were some of the challenges, but you know what? One fortunately tried and it worked out. But what hurts me is that majority of our people were victims, couldn't really sustain and succeed in such quite difficult circumstances.
You displayed a pliable sense of entrepreneurship in the early days of your business career, selling anything from crockery and linen to hair products from the boot of your car. How do you think this influenced and shaped your outlook on business?
I think, for me, my entry into being a trader, selling from the boot of my car, being a commission salesman, because when I started Black Like Me, that's the only experience I had. I'd never, because I don't really come from a business family or an environment, because as I indicated earlier on, as black people in the old South Africa, we're not allowed to go into business. But obviously really being a trader, selling products on a commission basis, because selling on commission basis, your salary check is dependent on the outcome of your own individual attempts. So if the harder you work, the better chance of you may really making money. And sometimes you're unfortunate for a week or two, you don't really sell anything. But fortunate enough, if you just really keep on trying, eventually you get a sale that obviously make up for this. And you, obviously during this period, you really learn the art of really being a good salesperson, respecting your customers, really listening to them so that you understand what is it that actually people want, what would really get someone to really give me their money. People don't just really give me money because they want to support me. People want me to really add value to their lives. And that's really what business is all about. Business and entrepreneurship, it's about adding value to the lives of people who pay you for it. And if you can really be sensitive to that, people will handsomely reward you. And I've really learned that. And I think my business life and career it's actually shaped around ensuring that I really give people value for their money. And that's really how over the years I've operated, and I hope I'll keep operating until I retire or until God decides one day that, Herman, it's enough for you in this world.
While your wife Connie was a very significant source of support and encouragement, what do you think helped you develop the grit and determination necessary for a resilient business?
I think, look, I was really quite fortunate fortunate enough getting married at a very early stage of my life, and precisely the reason to really take the decision at that very early stage was to stabilize my life. Come from a very fragmented society, and with losing a father at the age of 2, and mother being a domestic worker working in Johannesburg. Lucky if you see her once a month. So you grow up in this type of fragmented society, and realized when I decided to go into business that for whatever reason, business requires stability. And Connie really provided that to me. And I've obviously respected her, and she obviously has played that role in the last 32 years of our marriage. And I hope she continues to do that for another 20, 40 years. But at the same time, obviously, it's a mutual type of relationship. It's not really a one-way stream where I expect her to really play the role. I strongly believe that I have the responsibility to play a role in her life as well. Yeah, and I think that really helps in terms of all the time when I have business challenges that when I go home, I've got really someone to talk to, someone to listen to me, someone to really exchange ideas and thoughts with me. And so I think I strongly believe I was really quite fortunate that worked for me.
What was the most important lesson you've learned over the years, and what advice would you give to people, especially the youth, who might find themselves in the seemingly hopeless situation of unemployment, poverty, and inequality?
I think, one obviously learns, not just really in business, someone might really be a teacher, another one be a policeman and doctors. And for me, it so happened that I became a businessman. And throughout, obviously, this journey, you encounter lots of learnings in the process. To really go into business, I think one has to accept that you've got to be a hardworking individual. Work more than, obviously, someone who works in a factory starting at 8, closing at 4, 5. Unfortunately, if you're the owner of the business, your working hours are not predetermined. It's really based on what the business demands. And business normally really demands you to put in many hours. You can put in 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And also at the same time, you really need the discipline. Because if you're not really disciplined, you've got huge challenges. You need stability, as I indicated earlier on, regarding really stabilizing my life, getting married at an early stage. And at the same time, I think really have the patience. I think, a lot of people tend to expect overnight success. Overnight success, you might be lucky to strike it, but generally, if you look at business people, successful ones all over the world, it takes generations actually really to start developing a substantial balance sheet to really help take the family to the next level. And we sometimes actually tend to expect results yesterday. I've approached business from day one, knowing that this is for a long haul, and my success and what I do, honestly, I don't want it to be judged now while I'm still alive. I think I would really feel that the success of what I'm doing today, if it's going to really be something substantial, let's really see what happens 2, 3 generations after me. Did I really manage to build something for future generations? Because there's no point in me having a nice car and a nice house today, and my kids and their kids have got to start all over again. Do you think will they really say their father or their parents were successful? Absolutely not. And I think, for me, success, it's really something that I really appeal, particularly to the Black nation. Let us really start really preparing for future generations. Whatever we do, let us really be conscious of the fact that as human beings, we evolve. Let's start building balance sheets and the structures around for future generations. And I think that's really something that I'm committed to. So basically, I always ask people, please, if you'd really like to really see whether I was a successful human being or not, let's leave this to 2-3 generations after me to really make that call.
How do you think young South African entrepreneurs and businesses can employ capitalism to leverage the opportunities in a democratic society? I'm sure you're aware, every South African is very much aware about my commitment in promoting this capitalist system, because personally, deeply in love with the system, because it gives you the total freedom that human beings deserve. And I actually look at successful nations in the world, are those that actually have adopted the system. And the system really implies that for government to really leave people alone as much as possible. For as long as people believe they can do whatever they do through government, you're making a terrible mistake. Because that's not the role of government in a democratic system. In a free democratic system, government has got to stay away from you as much as possible. Let them play the role of ensuring that there's a rule of law in the country. But in terms of your own personal success and failures, I think if you want human beings to succeed, government must leave people alone. Let people obviously take the responsibility. And I think that's really what this capitalist system obviously really demands of us to really do. Because it's a system that would give you the opportunities as an individual to fly, and fly as high you feel possible yourself. So I think this is really something that I'm really committed, and I really hope that I can really use the balance of my life in advancing. You're a strong critic of government's involvement in business. Has your involvement in the DA advanced the stance, or is your role in the DA purely political?
Well, no, I think obviously politics is about really our lives, all of us. I think, people tend to really make a mistake that they don't want to get involved in politics. Because one thing that is definite, for as long as you think you can divorce yourself from politics, in fact, the harder you try and divorce yourself from politics, the quicker the politics are going to affect you. Because politics is about your life. And I think it's important for us as civil society, like myself, ensure that I think we guard against such activities where governments are trying to really control our lives. I think when God created us, we created as free human beings. Yes, as for us as human beings to be able to live with each other and really live in a modern, organized fashion, we really need the government to really be able to really come out with the laws so that there's a rule of law, as I've indicated earlier on. But the government has got no right whatsoever to tell me where to work, how many hours to sleep, what to eat. I mean, that's not the role of government. That's a decision, all of us, that we can really make on our own without government really giving such prescriptions. And I think we tend to really see, particularly in our country, where the government is actually giving this impression that they are the only ones who can really determine our future. They're the ones who can determine when we should go to sleep and so forth, which is actually, I think it's an insult. And I think we have got to really make sure that, I think, as black people, to avoid being caught into this myth, because it's a myth, and it's a very dangerous one for that matter. To allow government to really want to really control us. Actually, it's an insult for us as black people, coming from an apartheid system that really tried everything possible to destroy us as human beings. To allow a new government in a new democratic dispensation to really take over. I appeal to South Africans to actually understand that we are free human beings, and I think our constitution allows us that. But I think what we have to really do is to always be vigilant. Yes, and as you're aware, I've just recently joined that year as a haircare member, not obviously as an active politician. And I think the whole idea behind this was just to really help take our democracy to the next level. I've really had an opportunity over the 30 years of my business career to travel the world, particularly in developed democratic countries, and you really look at some of the reasons why these countries have succeeded. Is the participation of civil society into the affairs of their nation, including, in particular, business people. You know, I think for us as business people, as privileged South Africans, we need to ensure that we encourage debate, we encourage free thinking in our communities. And I think I've really taken that lead in ensuring that we help take our democracy to the next level.
That was Herman Mashaba on capitalism and his ascent into entrepreneurial glory.